The final arc of Star Wars The Clone Wars was absolutely amazing, but it was also a bit predictable. For most of the arc, we knew what was going to happen due to all the details about the arc that Dave Filoni and others revealed in the years after the show was cancelled. In fact, some of the videos we made all the way back in 2018 about Season 7, we talked about pretty much every major plot point the arc ended up having, just going off what had been revealed at panels with Filoni and company. But there was just one twist that none of us saw coming, that Rex hadn't removed his inhibitor chip. That revelation turns everything we thought we knew about the clones that remove their chips on its head, which means we're going to have to re-examine the many theories about clones removing their chips we've put out over the years. So strap in, because in this video, that's exactly what we're going to be doing.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Going into Season 7, we believed Captain Rex and a number of other clones had removed their inhibitor chips shortly after the events of Season 6. This was for good reason. Star Wars Rebels implied as much, showing us that Rex, together with Wolffe and Gregor, had removed his chip and all but telling us that he had done so before the Siege of Mandalore. The canon novel Ahsoka, which briefly touched on the Siege of Mandalore, assumed as much as well, though that part of the novel has presumably been retconned away by Season 7. It also retconned Rex's claim in Rebels that he never betrayed his Jedi General, which we now know is only true from a certain point of view, because Ahsoka technically wasn't a Jedi General.
I didn't betray my Jedi. Wolffe, Gregor and I all removed our control chips. We all have a choice.
This change is important because Rex removing his chip before Mandalore opened the floor to a whole range of possibilities. Back then, the assumption was that Rex convinced Wolffe and Gregor to remove theirs around the same time. If that were true, then Rex could have told any number of clone characters as well. Some of the ones who we speculated could have removed their chips were Jesse and Commander Doom, for example. We put out a lot of those theories, and Season 7 dropped a bit of a nuclear bomb on them. None of those clones could have removed their chips, at least not prior to Order 66. But where one door closes, another one often opens, and that's definitely the case here. So today, we're out to redeem ourselves. Season 7's reveal about Rex opens up two new questions for us to explore. Firstly, how we got Wolffe and Gregor to remove their chips, and secondly, if any clones would have removed their chips after Order 66. We're gonna look at both. Let's start by looking at where Rex would have gone from the crash site of that Star Destroyer. We know that he and Ahsoka parted ways, and we also know that he was now completely autonomous thanks to the removal of his inhibitor chip. Furthermore, it's almost certain that the Empire had no idea his chip had been removed or that he sided with Ahsoka, as Rex and Ahsoka were the only survivors from that Star Destroyer. This gave Rex a bit of freedom with where to go next, as the Empire had no real reason to have it out for him. Rex being Rex, he would have had no loyalty whatsoever to the Empire, but he may have actually gone back to the Stormtrooper Corps anyway. This would be purely a strategic decision, as it would have been the only way for him to stay on the Empire's good side long enough to get his bearings on the state of the galaxy. It would have been during this return that he would have encountered Commander Wolffe, and in the shady corner of 79's or some clone officers club, he would have convinced him to remove his own inhibitor chip. This may well have been easier because, to our knowledge, Wolffe never executed Order 66, and so his chip would have never kicked in. Plo Koon was killed by Captain Jag, a clone pilot in the skies above Cato Nemoidia, not by Wolffe. We don't know where Wolffe was at the time. He could have been on the bridge cities below or on a Star Destroyer above, but he wasn't with Plo Koon. It's also unlikely that he was with another Jedi, as the two other Jedi on the planet were with other clone units, and we doubt that there were more than 3 on Cato Nemoidia at the time, considering that the planet had been captured a few months before Order 66. The units there at the time of the Order were really just taking out small pockets of resistance. So, Wolffe got his chip removed and teamed up with Rex, and they either deserted the Stormtrooper Corps or retired from it, as we know the Empire allowed Clone Wars veterans to do. From there, they found Gregor, some way or another, We know even less about how Gregor got from where we last saw him in the Clone Wars to where we first saw him in Rebels than we do for Wolffe. Hell, before Rebels came around, he was generally assumed to have died in that last appearance. For the sake of simplicity, we're going to assume that after helping D-Squad escape, he ultimately didn't return to the Grand Army of the Republic, and Rex and Wolffe found him during a stop on Aberfar. If he did return to the Grand Army, his story was probably the same as Wolffe's anyway. From there, Rex, Wolffe and Gregor bought, found, or maybe stole a surplus ATTE, which the Empire started decommissioning a few years after the declaration of a new order. They then took their new walker to the middle of nowhere and became the clone boomers we all know and love in Solitude, just kind of vibing out in the desert. So that's one question answered, and it was simple enough, but we still have one more to deal with. Whether any clones deserted the Empire after Order 66, and more importantly, if any of them could have. That's an interesting question to answer because it depends on the strength of the inhibitor chips. Rex, Wolffe and Gregor were the only clones to straight up remove theirs, we now know. If any others had done so after the rise of the Empire, they would have joined the 3 commanders on their walker. But was it possible for clones to desert the Empire with their chips still in place? There's no confirmed answer in canon or legends, and so it's time for some good old theory crafting. Firstly, it's important to consider that clones didn't even really need to desert the Empire. As we mentioned before, the Empire treated Clone Wars veterans fairly well, likely out of fear, and they were pretty generous about allowing them to straight up retire after a few years. Furthermore, it's also unlikely that the vast majority of clones would have even wanted to. After all, they were trained to be highly obedient, and if the majority of the galaxy's civilians were fine with the Empire at first, the clones surely would have been too. Hell, the Empire treated them better than the Republic did anyway. But with that said, we do know that it was possible for the Imperial clones to quietly disobey orders. Clone commandos were phased out by the Empire, not out of a lack of need, but because they tended to do exactly that, and it was becoming a problem. In canon, we have the case of Commander Grey, who served alongside Padawan Caleb Dume, who would become known as Kanan Jarrus in later years. Dume escaped Order 66, but he was apprehended by Commander Grey a year after, and Grey was tasked with killing him in compliance with the order. But Grey hesitated, allowing Dume to escape the warship he was being held on. Said warship had the firepower to shoot down Dume's small freighter, but Grey, despite not having removed his chip, refused to do so, instead blasting the freighter controls and allowing himself to die. That last example comes from a canon comic written well after the inhibitor chips became a thing. Even before Season 7, Commander Grey was an interesting case because we know for a fact that his chip did work. He killed Depa Billaba when Order 66 was first issued. It's also not possible that he got his chip removed afterwards because he was about to kill Doom when the Padawan managed to escape. This proves rather conclusively that there were limits on the effectiveness of inhibitor chips. There might have been a one-time thing, a metaphorical switch that would go off in the clone's brain when they received the order for the first time, after which the influence of the chips would quickly fade. Additionally, they might have only kicked in when it was Palpatine giving the order directly. Both of these scenarios mean that, yes, it's very possible for clones to have deserted the Empire. So, with that said, what do you think happened to all of our favorite clone characters? Which ones do you think would have deserted, and which ones do you think would have stuck around? Feel free to post your thoughts in the comment section below. And just before you go guys, please do check out those links in the description below. If you want to join myself and other Star Wars fans on our main Geetsly's Discord, that link is down below. If you just want to play games with other Star Wars fans, we do also have our Geetsly's Gaming Network on Gary's Mod and Roblox. And if you want to help support the channel more than you already are by watching this video, and help improve the quality and quantity of videos we post on this channel, then donating any amount to the Patreon is greatly appreciated as well. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.